They look a bit illegal. They look very illegal. What is going on?
The reigning interim heavyweight champion of the world just so happens to be one of the most divisive figures in the sport of mixed martial arts today. Ciryl Gane is a brilliant technician, there is no doubt about it. And ever since he debuted in the UFC, he has been bringing new levels of striking to the weight class.
We are in the high-level MMA when you are in the top 5 UFC, and if you want to make difference, you must to be present, like 100%. If you're not, it would be complicated even if you are the best fighter in the world.
But we can't talk about Gane without discussing the dark side of his rise. The risk that every fighter takes when they sign on the dotted line to face him. There are two sides of Ciryl Gane, and both are just as likely to put you in the hospital. Before we get to the fighters, how about a word from UFC color commentator Joe Rogan, who had been on board with the Ciryl Gane hype train from his earliest days, picking Gane out as a prospect from back when he debuted in the company.
Like, did you see the Derek Lewis-Ciryl Gane fight?
No.
No, Ciryl Gane beat the shit out of him. Ciryl Gane, who's 6'5", he's bouncing of heavyweight striking. He is the best moving heavyweight I've ever seen. No question.
Hearing Joe talk about Gane back then, it is easy to see how right he was in many ways. Sure, public perception of Gane is a lot more negative right now due to this very disturbing pattern of cheating that has become clear. But Ciryl's actual skills as a fighter has never really been in doubt, apart from some poor decision making and some wrestling holes that have shown themselves. As yet another master of MMA striking, hearing Alexander Volkanovski breaking down Gane's fighting approach with tape is a real treat. The fact that Gane has more in common movement-wise with a featherweight than his fellow heavyweights says it all.
Doesn't like to be in a position. He's a very safe fighter. He loves his jab, leg kicks, things that I like to do. Likes to jab at the hands. When you overcommit and leave clear openings, counter. A lot of people have big problems. They panic punch, but Gane isn't one to panic punch. Step, shoulder move, farm up type jabs, clean jabs that aren't telegraphed.
The movement of Gane is probably his greatest asset in the cage. And to be a man who is weighing in north of 250 pounds who can move like that, it's gonna give you some real advantages in there. Volkanovski is a master of footwork in his own right, and so it makes all the sense in the world that he can recognize Gane's talents. People think of Gane as a striker, first and foremost, and with good reason. But the former middleweight champion Michael Bisping was pretty quick to remind the world that the French superstar has since become a very well-rounded mixed martial artist.
Ciryl Gane is probably technically a better striker, but Ciryl Gane's style utilizes a lot more movement, and you're defending takedowns all the time. You also learn how to dig for underhooks and pummel in and stuff like that, and that's exactly what Ciryl Gane is doing here to Alex Pereira.
Although Ciryl has made some very costly mistakes and shown some skill deficits over the years, especially in his grappling, it's not like these are problems that are beyond fixing. What some people forget is that Gane actually debuted in the UFC when he was 3-0. In fact, his pro debut in the TKO promotion was actually for their organizational title. Bongamon has been learning to swim in the deep end since day one, so it's only natural that he had some things to fix. But for as much as we know that Ciryl Gane is a very good heavyweight fighter, these days it's impossible to talk about his prowess without also talking about the rule bending he has become known for. In many ways, potentially losing an eye is a lot scarier than getting KO'd. That's for sure. Prior to his return to the UFC octagon, where he debuted as a heavyweight, Jon Jones made it clear that he and his team were more than aware of Gane's tendency to break the rules. When you consider that Jones is renowned as one of the greatest tape studiers in MMA history, it makes total sense.
I felt it tingling now, don't get me wrong. So I thought I'd take a timeout, let the ref know that I was fouled. One of the shots that actually put him down was a strike to the back of the head. He hits people in the back of the head quite a bit, and I didn't want any type of dirty play happening on such a big night.
For some fans, it's pretty rich to hear perhaps the most consistent cheater in MMA history taking shots at the man who arguably took up his mantle. Both of these guys have a very sketchy history when it comes to eye pokes and other illegal methods. Jones, of course, was able to take full advantage of Gane's comparatively short history of grappling and wrestling when they fought, submitting the Frenchman in the very first round. In many ways, it's a win that has really aged quite well, considering how good Gane has looked ever since. If they were to fight now, over 3 years later, who do you think would get their hand raised, Ciryl Gane or Jon Bones Jones? Let us know your exact prediction in the comments below. Out of all the fighters we're going to mention here, there are two who have a real bone to pick with Gane over his alleged cheating. And of course, Tom Aspinall will be the first one that we will be looking at. Aspinall was clearly quite invested in the result of the Gane vs Poatan clash, knowing full well that the winner would very likely be next for him.
Oh, good jab. Oh, they look a bit illegal. They look very illegal. What is going on? And he's swinging now, he's trying to finish him.
Aspinall didn't even seem surprised in real time that Gane had fouled Poatan en route to victory. In fact, there was likely some real vindication creeping in. If the world now saw Gane fouling in his most high-profile bout to date, that would make Tom's own run-in with Cyryl's eye pokes seem a whole lot easier to sympathize with. Sure, there was some doubt over Aspinall's ability to even return to the cage this year, and yet it does seem like he's determined to do so. What do you guys think? Gane's last two opponents seemed genuinely damaged by the ordeal of facing him. Aspinall seemed unsure of whether he could even see properly again, while Poatan admitted that the shots to the back of his head made him genuinely worried about competing in the future. Do you think Gane would beat them both in a rematch if everyone played fair? Let us know your thoughts. The second man who is very justifiably angry at Gane these days is the former 185 and 205-pound champion, Alex Pereira, who took to Ariel Helwani's show in the days that followed the UFC White House card to give perhaps the most heated interview ever.
É isso que eu quero, esse é meu foco, e mostrar que eu posso vencer esse cara, entendeu? Eles não querem ver trapace, entendeu?
All that I want is a rematch to fight square and show people that's what people want to see. People don't want to see cheating.
Pereira is by no means a big talker, and yet he seemed determined to get his point across as well as he could, getting his money's worth from his translator as he attempted to explain his side of things. It's hard not to sympathize with him under the circumstances, but realistically, the best thing he can do now is get back into the octagon and start winning again. How about a word from the UFC president Dana White, a man who's never afraid to throw one of his own fighters under the bus, if he felt he needed to? The question is, would he do the same to Gane in this case?
I think every time everybody fights, the referee should be watching everything. And I say it, no reffing anywhere is perfect. Definitely some fights, it's never going to be perfect. Alex Pereira is not a whiner. Pereira doesn't complain about things or make excuses after fights. That was true.
Dana had his promoter cap firmly on his head when he took this question, although we're sure that he understands exactly what went down in the cage. Would Poatan have survived that knockdown if those back-of-the-head shots hadn't immediately followed? We'll let you be the judge of that. And what better way to end than with a word from Ciryl Gane himself, and his own take on the allegations made towards him and the cheater label that many of his critics have assigned to him.
If not, what is your response to Tom calling you a cheater?
This is his opinion. Beautiful professional referee, because I respect the rules. Everybody, his opinion is okay.
Gane can't really say too much else about this, can he? The video evidence is pretty damning at this stage, and in many ways, refs should feel a bit more pressure to punish him if anything gets out of hand. But for now, Gane will likely come into his next fight for the heavyweight title as a betting favorite, and it's hard to argue with it. But what do you think of Ciryl Gane? First, as a fighter from a technical standpoint, but also after all of the controversies that have followed him over the years. Let us know in the comments below.